for unlocking the future, how can financial institutions prepare themselves to scale AI? Please give a huge round of applause for Athena Sharma, Global Financial Services Lead at Artefact.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Athena. I'm the Global Financial Services Lead at Artefact. For those of you who may not have heard about Artefact before, we're a global data consulting, data science, and data engineering firm. But I promise this is not a sales pitch. So I'm going to focus on giving you my insights on how financial institutions can scale AI. Now, before I start, I'll make a bold statement, right? I think based on my experience, most financial institutions have adopted AI in some form, even if it's dabbling in the technology through a little pilot. And I promise you, I have a statistic on this from The Economist, but just to get the audience engagement going, I assume many of you are part of the financial institution space and sector. Just quick show of hands if you're aware of any AI projects, AI initiatives currently going on in your organization. You don't need to answer me, just a quick show of hands. Okay, so a decent about 20% of you have said yes, right? Statistic I had was about 54% of FIs have dabbled in AI. And to add to that proliferation, about 86% of executives claim that, through to 2025, they plan on increasing AI investment. And there's clearly a very pertinent value case for AI in financial institutions. If you take investment banks as an example, they're perhaps the earliest adopters and benefactors of machine learning technology in the space of algorithmic trading. Consider the fact that about 70% of FIs use machine learning for either fraud detection, credit scoring, or for predicting cash flow events. Conversational AI is a big thing in the retail banking and insurance space, right? So clearly, there is a value case to be had for AI. But despite this, a number of financial institutions fall short when it comes to translating AI projects into productionization and actually delivering enterprise-wide value. So what I'm going to talk to you about today is how you can overcome that barrier. I mean, it sounds very simple. I'm going to talk about three things. One is obviously investing in core technology and data management. Number two is new ways of working, so a future-ready operating model. And number three is really proactively considering AI ethics and regulation, which I think many of us aren't doing at this stage. So let's delve into each of these a little bit, right? Let's start with investing in core technology and data management. Now, one of the key challenges FIs face is that the core technology we have is built for stability. It's built for undertaking traditional operations. So, think payments, think lending, claims management. So the IT stack, the legacy IT stack, just doesn't have the capacity or flexibility needed to deploy AI at scale. So the computational capacity, the data management requirements, the analytics that you need in a closed-loop AI application is just not available. And as a consequence, the time to provision the right environment to actually test and develop AI technologies takes too long. Sometimes it can take a few days, sometimes it can take a few months. So that can be quite prohibitive when you're trying to be innovative, right? And the solution for this, many of you will be aware of this, is a transition to cloud computing. Now, that's easier said than done, but a transition to cloud not only will allow financial institutions to be more scalable, more flexible in their approach towards AI, but it also reduces your IT overheads, and it enables you to have a faster time to market for your solutions, right? And so if you take the example of provisioning an AI environment to test and develop solutions, a cloud environment can reduce the time to do that from a few days down to literally a few minutes, thanks to managed services. And I have a good client example for this. So I, without taking names, have been working with a leading UK commercial and a retail bank. It's one of the top 5 in the UK. It's pretty big. And they've had a problem with what they call their rate of innovation, right? The rate of innovation in that bank is measured as the number of new AI technologies and solutions being developed and deployed at a pilot stage, at this stage, albeit, every year. And that rate of innovation has been largely low. Over the past 2 years, they've started transitioning into the cloud. And their rate of innovation has increased by, if I'm not mistaken, about 49%, according to their own KPIs. Now, that might seem like it's small, but for an incumbent monolithic institution, that's actually been quite revolutionary. And cloud is just one part of the answer. So as they start moving towards a renewed operating model, proactively thinking about AI ethics, I think the possibilities for them will be endless. Which then brings me to a second common challenge within the realm of technology and data, which is the fact that in financial institutions, there is a distinct lack of a centralized data backbone. And what that means is that data remains fragmented and trapped in silos across various business units and business divisions. And as a consequence, your data is not standardized, data quality is hard to manage, there is limited availability of a single source of truth. And rightly, a number of business stakeholders will be skeptical of any data-driven solutions because they're not even sure if the underlying data is right, is it trustworthy? And to that, I think the key investment area for FIs is obviously investing in modern data governance and data management practices. And a key component of that is what we call an enterprise data model. Enterprise data model is essentially a way of describing and logically organizing your data in business relevant language. So something that everyone will understand. It's not an IT concept. And what that really helps you do is it enables a number of your core data governance pillars, right? So if you have an enterprise data model which has the right domains defined in a way which is understandable by the business, it will enable your data operating model. It will enable your data governance practices. It'll enable better data quality management. And I've been recently working with a standards institute in the UK. They're not a financial institution, but they're a highly regulated industry. And one of the key challenges they had was breaking data silos. And how do you maintain a consistent set of data standards across a really large organization? And we've gone and defined this enterprise data model for them. It's not been an outside-in exercise. Actually, it's been a very collaborative stakeholder exercise. And this has essentially formed the foundation of all things data, right? They've defined their new data operating model roles based on this EDM. They've defined their data governance processes based on this EDM. They've then gone on to actually define how they're going to continuously manage data quality and prioritize which domains to remediate, which ones are low priority based on this EDM concept. So it can be quite revolutionary, and I think for financial institutions, given the complexity, it's quite scary to think that you're going to have a centralized data model that everyone will buy into. But I think when you take a step back and realize that this is not some sort of centralized IT function that we're trying to push towards you, but really just a business glossary, it becomes a bit more palatable. And then the third challenge is, of course, data access, right? So if you think about data essentially being one of the most essential raw materials that any organization has, not just financial services, key to leverage its value is to have access to analytics at scale at the point of decision making, right? And in financial institutions, that is extremely difficult given where data sits. An innovative way of solutionizing for this, beyond just data governance, which we've just touched on, has been APIs. So API-enabled databases will help you to hopefully collaborate more effectively and access the data in a secure manner, but at scale and in real time to actually fulfill your business objectives. So that sort of covers the investing in core technology and data management, right? So we've spoken about 3 priorities here: transition to cloud, an enterprise data model, and data access. Easy, we can do that in a few months. The second area which requires attention, I think, and this is probably a bit more important and harder to do, is a future-oriented operating model. So what do I mean by that? The current operating model of financial institutions impedes their ability to innovate. The operating model, largely speaking, and I think I'll be correct most of the times, is divided according to, or organized according to business divisions, and oftentimes there's a centralized IT functions. Business leaders have the autonomy to set their agenda on a largely unilateral basis, and this is true for their AI strategies as well. Fragmented teams and a waterfall approach towards collaboration invariably will lead to delays, cost overruns, and suboptimal performance. And most importantly, in FIs, one of my most pertinent observations has been a test and learn mindset still does not exist. And essentially what that means is you're not able to work in an iterative manner to continuously innovate and continuously improve, which is what you need in order to scale AI. You're never going to get it right in the first go. Our proposition for this has been to develop a more agile and flexible operating model. What does this mean in practice? We at Artefact like to call this a data product-led operating model, although you may have heard different names. You can call it a data platform operating model as well, a modular operating model. But essentially what this operating model entails is that you have different business, cross-functional technology teams coming together to own what we call a data product. A data product is essentially a set of data solutions that directly address a business challenge or a business outcome. And this data product team will have their own budget, they'll have their own assets, they'll have their own KPIs. So to give you an example, you might have a client 360 team made up of business stakeholders, IT stakeholders, data stakeholders. The data products that they deliver for the business, as well as external clients, could be a number of things. So you could have a client 360 analytics layer. The audience for that analytics layer is primarily data scientists and data engineers who use it to test and learn AI ML solutions. You could have a client 360 dashboard with relevant KPIs, the audience for which will be frontline sales colleagues who can use it to improve customer lifetime value. You could provide data to your marketing team on marketing optimization, personalization to help them better spend their marketing budgets. So as you can see, the kind of possibilities here are endless, but a modular operating model essentially allows your teams to collaborate better and to work towards a common strategic objective rather than the current silos that we operate in, not just in FIs, but across a myriad of corporates where product teams don't exist. Instead, we work from a very divisional and functional lens, which only exacerbates the data and technical silos that exist in the organization. And then my final point is around AI ethics and regulation. Now, being proactive about AI ethics and regulation is perhaps the best no-regrets activity any financial institution can invest in right now. If you look at the recent AI Act, which has been ratified, I believe, by the EU now, it essentially imposes regulatory restrictions on anyone who uses any software associated with biometric technology in the financial institution space, human capital management, or credit assessment of individuals, which will pretty much be most financial institutions. Now, the full extent of future AI regulation is not yet clear to anyone, certainly not to me. But what is evident is that regulation will be ethics-based. But what's interesting is a recent State of AI report, a 2022 one from The Economist, states that only 23% of respondents in the financial services industry felt that their company understood the ethical issues associated with AI. And so what I always say to my clients is that it's very important that in-house you start developing a bit of a ethical AI governance framework that covers all aspects of AI ethics, that including bias, including data management, model training and retraining, AI explainability. And I think many of you will be looking outside, looking for experts to help you do this. And they do exist. I have dabbled in this area for a few years. I know something about AI ethics. But what's key to remember is there are not so many experts. This isn't like your cloud transition where you need to bring in an Accenture or an IBM to help you. You need to just get started on your own in-house to build that knowledge, leveraging expert advisory where it's helpful. But you don't need to wait for someone to hold your hand. You do have the opportunity to be pioneers in this topic. So during this conversation, then, what most people will ask me is if the silver bullet to all of our AI woes is so obvious, what are we waiting for? Why aren't we being successful, right? And to that, I say the silver bullet really isn't about better technology or data management or a newer operating model or even AI ethics for that matter. All of those are foundational enablers that are critical for AI success. But the secret sauce is institutional mindset, in my opinion anyway. And what I see largely in FIs is there are two mindset shifts that are needed. A shift from being individual to collective, and a shift from being risk-averse to responsible pioneering. Now, the first one requires large-scale stakeholder buy-in, and I think that's largely there, especially in terms of what the importance and value that AI adds to your business. What's missing is breaking the mindset of the old ways of working, where stakeholders tend to hold on quite tightly to what they're used to and don't actually see how their siloed mentality, siloed division, siloed operating models are actually contributing detrimentally to your ability to productionize AI. And the second and final one, which is moving from risk aversion to a pioneering mindset, that really requires a deeply embedded cultural change where the entire organization has a strong level of literacy on the impact of AI, the applications of AI, and the ethics behind AI in order to be innovative without being irresponsible. But honestly, that's easier said than done, particularly in an industry where risk aversion is so deeply embedded. But ultimately, when it comes to AI adoption, I don't think financial institutions have much optionality. It's not about how AI or whether AI can add value to your business. It's about how you can embed AI in your day-to-day operations in order to remain relevant and competitive in a rapidly changing global marketplace. So thank you for listening. I have given you 3 minutes back, so you can have an earlier lunch, but I will be around if you guys have any questions. Thank you.